Greetings and salutations. Thanks for clicking on the video or hanging out with me if autoplay is how you are watching the video. I used to say all the time to open up my videos, thanks for clicking on the video, and then some smartasses came along in the comments and started saying, well, I didn't click on the video. I watched the video because of autoplay. And then that got to be a thing, so I stopped saying it. But it just popped into my head before I started recording this one. Well, we are in the middle of the big coronavirus outbreak, and it seems like a lot of people are looking for ways to distract themselves since they're stuck at home because my YouTube video views have gone up, and we've gotten a lot of new subscribers. So before we get into the meat of the video, I want to say thank you to everybody who has done that. A lot of folks are curious about Linux these days, and they got plenty of time to learn. Awesome. We're here for you. In this video, I am just going to ramble on a bit about the XFCE desktop and Xubuntu, which is a distribution of Linux. It is an official flavor of Ubuntu that comes with the XFCE desktop. It's been a while since we talked about XFCE. Probably the last time we did was when we poked around MX Linux a while back, because that ships with XFCE, a very strange implementation of XFCE. And last time I talked about Xubuntu was probably more than a year ago. I ran it for a little while right after Ubuntu 18.04 came out and talked about it then. So why am I running it now? Well, I did this video last week about my workflow and about the GNOME desktop and all that stuff. I talked about the Mate desktop, and it just struck me out of the middle of nowhere on Saturday night, for some reason or the other, to go ahead and install the XFCE desktop and play around with it. Now, it was too late to start doing that when I thought about it, so I said, I'll do it tomorrow. I don't have a thing to do Sunday morning. So that's what I did for my Sunday morning, was hang out and play around with this installation. I installed Xubuntu or Xubuntu, whatever you want to call it is fine. I call it Xubuntu. And just spent the day tweaking, because that is what the XFCE desktop experience is to me, is tweaking. And it's one of the reasons that I don't usually recommend it for people who are just starting out with Linux, because it is it's kind of like KDE in that there's a lot of stuff that you can click around and poke at and play with. Now, KDE is a desktop that I don't talk about at all on this channel. It's been a long time. It's not my favorite, and I don't have a good track record with KDE, so you're not going to see videos me talking about KDE. But I will say that I no longer hate it with a screaming passion like I did 3 or 4 years ago. The KDE project has come a long way, and now if I absolutely had to use KDE, I could, but it is definitely not my choice. I think that KDE is for masochists, but that's another video entirely, right? And I'm just pissing off half the people watching this thing, so I better shut up about KDE. But Xubuntu is, or XFCE and Xubuntu have been around for a very long time. The XFCE desktop is an oldie but a goodie. At certain points in time, it almost was a thing that people were saying, well, the XFCE desktop is going to go away, because what happened is that the development just would stall. It would just stop. There wouldn't be any updates to the XFCE project for a long, long time. And then the community rallies around it and goes, no, 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 no. And so that means that it is extremely stable. They don't do a lot of messing around. There's not feature creep going on here. They don't put extra stuff in it. No. The XFCE experience I'm having now is pretty much the same XFCE experience that I had 3-4 years ago when I was running it and doing YouTube videos. There was a point in time when I was doing a lot of videos from this old e-machine that I got from my fiance, and the machine was completely incapable of running Windows. It was that horrible, and I cobbled together some spare parts and ended up getting 2 gigabytes of RAM in the thing, and it had internal Intel graphics with like 128 megabytes of video memory. This thing was really low end, And I used to do YouTube videos on it to prove a point that you could actually do that. That was my daily driver machine for a while. And then, of course, it got where I couldn't continue to do that. A lot of the videos that I posted about working in the terminal were done on that machine because you couldn't do much else with it, that's for sure. But I could actually record videos on it. And that was my last long-term experience with XFCE. So, let's talk about Xubuntu a little bit, and then we'll kind of poke around the desktop some. How's that? So, you can come to their webpage here, and you can download it. I would strongly suggest that you would download, go to the internet and do a search for Xubuntu or Xubuntu 1804.nothing. It's just like, and then go and get it from the CD release downloads where you can get the older downloads. There's an actual web page that allows you to do that, because all of the point releases in Ubuntu have it has a hardware enablement stack, and sometimes those kernels aren't supported for a very long time, and that can leave you in a weird place, especially if you're just starting out with Linux, where you have to upgrade your kernel. You get a kernel that's only supported for like 9 months. It's very strange. So with long-term support versions of Ubuntu, I just avoid that and just get the original first day release and then go ahead and let it update. And that keeps me on the main LTS kernel. And for the old hardware that I run, I don't care. I don't need the latest, greatest kernel for anything. You know what I mean? So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at that. And this is it. It's running inside a virtual machine. By the way, the GNOME Boxes software works beautifully on XFCE. I have had no problems with that whatsoever. It installed nicely, and it runs nicely, and it gets along with the desktop. Somebody had said when I mentioned Boxes in a recent video that they weren't able to get it to work on Linux Mint. You have to install some stuff around Boxes. It's a procedure. It's not just a matter of sudo apt install GNOME Boxes. You've got to kind of tweak it a little bit, and there's instructions on how to do that online. And I have a script that does it. That is it available in the script collection on the web? I don't think it is. But anyway, it's really super easy, actually. Just look it up. Install GNOME Boxes on Ubuntu 18.04. Follow those directions on Linux Mint. It should work just fine. Linux Mint is Ubuntu based, so you shouldn't have any problems. So this is what you get when you boot it up. This is the live version of this. I have not installed it on this machine. I'm just running it from the live image, and you get very little software installed coming directly from the Xubuntu project. They have a neat media player that they use called Parole, which is really nice because it's just about the last one standing these days that will let you have a playlist docked on the right-hand side, and I like that. So I can drag in like 5 or 6 videos and watch them, and like you're using MPV or like GNOME videos, it's horrible. It's really hard to do that. And so that's one of the things that I actually installed it for, was just to play around with that. The text editor is, let's just go to all here. The text editor is Mousepad. It's just a really basic desktop. They do not come with things like GNOME disks. They don't install the entire LibreOffice suite, so you'll have to get that. Very, very, very stripped down distro. That's all the software that's installed by default. And so you will have to add software. You will have to do a lot of configuring. Now, I have mixed feelings about Xubuntu. First of all, I love them because they're very consistent, and they have done a wonderful job. Every time that I've ever used it, it has been a good experience. The downside is that I can't stand their defaults. And, like, they make the menu this one icon here. Well, I like to do it a little bit differently, so I have to go in and change that. And then they put the panel up top, and they have to change that. And the panel doesn't automatically hide intelligently, so I have to change that. And then the clock layout, I don't like that, so I have to change that. And that is why this is not something that I usually recommend for new users, because you're going to have to change a lot of it unless you just happen to really like the way it's set up. This virtual machine is running at 1270 by 720. No, No, 1280 by 720. What the hell am I talking about? 1270. Never mind. Brain fart. Anyway, and this looks pretty big on the video, and I did that on purpose. But if you install this and you have a pretty high resolution screen, we're not even talking about full high DPI, not 4K here. We're talking about like my screen, which is 1920 by 1080. If you do that, then it is really tiny print. I mean, they've got it like set to 9 and 10 and stuff like that. So that's the first thing I usually have to do. They use this Graybird, which is the theme. And the Graybird is, for me, hard to see because it's relatively low contrast. So let's go here and look at appearance. See, yeah, they use Graybird here. So that is something I don't particularly like right out of the box. You may love it. If it works for you, that's great. So there's just a lot to poke around, and there's a lot to set up because it's not, this is a very lean distro. You're going to have to install some software. Advanced Linux users tend to really like that, though, because what we end up doing with things like regular Ubuntu or Linux Mint is we end up uninstalling a lot of crap we don't need. And so it's half dozen of one, six of the other. If you like to have a lean distro to start with, great. It's wonderful. So this is what it looks like when you install it, their version of it. And this is what I do to it. So let's go back over here. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and close the Xubuntu page. I will leave a link for that in the description for sure. Of course, I have to customize the terminal. I didn't change the color palette in the terminal, though. The XFCE terminal is more simple than what you see with like GNOME terminal, which I like. And it's very straightforward and easy to work with. So I have no problems with this. You can see that you have a lot of the, you can go in there and just do all kinds of stuff with it. I like it. You can make it yours. Colors. So yeah, I didn't mess around too much with that other than I got rid of the menu bar and a few other things like that. Just a few tweaks I always do. And we'll get to that effect in just a few minutes. I like that effect that you can do in XFCE, that when you move a window, you can make it even more opaque. So the file manager that you get in XFCE is Thunar. Thunar is cool. Thunar has been around for a long time. It is a very basic file manager. It doesn't have a huge amount of features, and it never really did. It just does the basic stuff, but it does it very well. And it's like, for instance, if you want to add a bookmark over here, just grab one of these and drag it over and just drop it down at the bottom of the list, and it knows what you want to do, and you just do it. That's cool. See, because I always put this work directory in with my bookmarks because I throw a lot of stuff in there that I'm working on or downloading off the web or something like that. If you want to search, then you just right click and you'll see that you get this find in this folder, and then it brings up Catfish, which is installed and ready to rock and roll, and you just type it in and do it. That's fine. It's not a built-in search, but it works just as well. I have no issue with that. None at all. And one of the things I do, this is called the Whisker menu plugin right here. And this gives you a more traditional menu like you would find in a traditional desktop. I always go in here and customize the hell out of this thing. I change the size of the icons. I put the categories over here. Whisker menu is really cool. It is one of the more basic, slicker, easier to use windows. It's easy to customize. So like you can go in here and let's see if I can get in here. There you go. Give me the, that's behind the microphone. So like here, where you have the buttons up top, you can put your own commands in there if you want to. Of course, God help you if you mess that up and you don't know what you're doing, because then that just doesn't work, and then you got to go dig around on a forum somewhere to figure it out. I've made that mistake enough times to know not to mess with that. I don't go too deep into these settings, man. I just kind of like, okay. So yeah, that's the Whisker menu. Now, technically speaking, you don't need to have a menu on the panel to run XFCE. you don't even really need a panel because you can just right click anywhere, and then down here you got applications, and it gives you everything that you need. You can log out from here if you want to. And then they have some kind of like what you would see in like a window manager type setup. This got it in here. Like if I want to run want to launch the web browser, well, I just click on web browser. See, it just pops right up. It's no problem whatsoever. And that's kind of cool. So you could technically get rid of your panel. You wouldn't have to have it at all, and just have your icon on the desktop for home, and that's it. Of course, I think most folks would probably kind of want a panel. Adding things to the panel is super easy. It's a matter of just right-clicking and saying, oh, I'd like to have a calculator on the panel. Well, no problem. Just add to panel. And then once you get it there, you don't have to do anything but drag it where you want it to go. The panel itself is super easy to work with. So let's go to panel preferences. I'll show you what I got here. You can have it horizontal. You can have it vertical. You can lock the panel. If you unlock the panel, you can put it on the top. You can put it on the bottom. You can add panels. You can have as many as you want. As a matter of fact, a neat trick that you can do with XFCE is to build your own dock. It's just a panel. So you make it so it auto hides. And you can put it at the top. Or you can put it over here. And then you could just put a bunch of launchers on it. And it acts just exactly like a dock. But it's actually a lot less... what am I trying to say here? It's like if you're running Plank or something like that for a dock or Docky, you're running a program, right? So there's all kinds of configuration files, and you could click on the wrong thing and then get, I don't know, sometimes they get a little weird. If you just make a panel and put some icons on it, no big deal. Super easy to do. So that's easy. You can just add another panel. So I can do that in the video to show you. Let's add a panel right now. There's my panel. Do you see my panel pop up? So that's now panel 1. And let's say that we wanted to put it right here. Okay. And we're going to lock that panel. We're going to make it horizontal. And let's see here. We can go into Appearance. And let's see. We are working on our little panel now. We're not going to hide it yet. We could hide it intelligently or whatever. How big do we want to make our panel? Okay, display appearance. We can use the system style, and we can put items on the panel. So let's say that we wanted to put a clock up there. Or we could put a workspace switcher. Where's the clock? I just went past it real fast, didn't I? Notifications, network manager, network monitor, blah, 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 blah. Let's do the CPU graph. We can do a clock or a CPU graph. Let's do a CPU graph. That's pretty cool. That might be something that I actually want up there, okay? So that's showing what the CPUs are doing. And then we could just leave that where it is. And now let's say that we wanted to add a program up there. Go in here to the whisker menu, and let's say we want to put Simple Screen Recorder up there. So add to panel. Now it's going to ask me which panel I want. I'm going to tell it panel 1, add. So there's our Simple Screen Recorder. And let's go back to appearance. Let's make this panel like big. Let's see. How do I make it larger? Here we go. Okay, I've got to scroll down a little bit. I think that's a little lower here. No, it's not in here. Where is it? I want to make the panel bigger than it is. I got number of rows. What do I get when I pull this up? Oh, that's making it bigger. Duh. Okay. It was right there. You didn't see that, man? It said row size. I thought it meant like number of rows. Oh. So we can add another thing up here. Let's add another thing. Why not? We're having fun, right? You're enjoying this. Let's put LibreOffice up there on my panel. Okay. So I want to go to Add to Panel, and it asks which one. Well, we'll put it right there. Add. There's LibreOffice. That's it. Now, if we make our panel, let's make it intelligently hide. Okay. Now, what does that do? I got to close this to make it happen. So what does that do? Well, that makes it goes away if something gets too close to it. But then if not, it shows up. So it's kind of acting like a dock at this point. All right. And I notice our CPUs are really working. That's because I'm recording video. And I have a virtual machine running. So, let's see. Panel preferences. So what I want to get rid of this panel now. Are you sure? Yes, I want to remove it. Bang, that's it. That's as easy as that can be. I mean, I fumbled around a little bit because the last time I actually did that was probably like 2 or 3 years ago. But there you go. So you see how you could really go crazy with XFCE, and you can put all of this stuff on the panel. So if I go to, just click here and then go to Properties. Wait a minute, go to Panel, go to Add to Panel, and there's a long list of things here. So there you go. It is a look at the XFCE desktop, and thank you for hanging out with me while I was doing that and trying to figure out how to make it work. So what else did I want to say? I guess that's about it. It is a very, very lean distribution of Linux. It's got a lot of tweaks. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. I wanted to show you guys how to do the window manager thing. See, one of the cool things about XFCE is that it has its own compositing. It's built in, so it doesn't run like Compton or Marco or anything, or Compiz. I mean, you can install those things if you want to, but it has its built-in compositor, so you can tweak it. Like I've got it set where if you move that, it becomes opaque. If we open up another window there, you'll see that the window behind it is just a little bit darker. That's because it's just slightly opaque. And for me, that lets me know if I have more than one window up on the screen that what I'm looking at is, which one is the window that's forward, the main window, if you got a bunch of things up there. So that's just a little thing that I've kind of stuck in there. It also will do that if you go to resize. So let's resize here. Resize, see? So it does it opaquely, so if you wanted to do something like, make it fit in with something, you could do it. So it's very cool that way. Now, one of the issues that you can have, especially with like NVIDIA cards, is screen tearing. And in that case, I disabled compositing there by accident. The screen tearing issue can sometimes be mitigated with having it to synchronize by, right here it says synchronize drawing to the blank, the vertical blank. That will sometimes work to get rid of it on like older Intel graphics, but if you're running an NVIDIA card, you will probably have to do more than that. Like what I do is I just put a command in there to set the compositor up on the NVIDIA card, which if you have one, you probably already know how to do since you're running Linux. So if you're seeing screen tearing issues, that would be something that you would do to make that happen. I have to do that with Ubuntu Mate these days. I have to do that with any other desktop besides GNOME and Cinnamon, simply because of the fact they have compositors built in. They're already there. And I can't remember whether I have to do that with KWin on KDE or not, because it's been a very long time since I tried KDE. So anyway, yeah, I'm having fun with this. Whether I'll keep it forever, I have no idea. I just decided to play with it for a while, and when you got toys, you want to share, so I wanted to let you guys play around and see what was going on. And it's just a lot of fun to mess around with this desktop. It's very elastic. I mean, look what MX Linux does with it. And if MX Linux didn't ship with a damn conky in the middle of the screen, and that was the most important application, I might use that as well. Now I'm going to piss off the people who use MX Linux. It's time for me to shut up. So let's see here. I'm going to show you how I can find the feedback slide very quickly with Thunar. So let's see. Find in this folder. And I'll put in feedback. Like so. Enter. And it finds the slide. Yes, it's a little bit more clicky than GNOME. Well, that reminds me. One thing I wanted to tell you guys is that this deal right here, where you hit the super key or the Windows key and it brings up the menu, the folks over at Xubuntu don't have that set that way. The way they have it set is that in order to get that, I think it's either Control Escape or Alternate Escape. It took me forever to figure that out. But what you can do is just open up the keyboard bindings. Super easy to set your own bindings. If you don't like their keyboard, like, let's see, we'll try it here. What is it? It's I'm in the virtual machine, so I can tell you it's alternate F1. No, that opens up the, let's see, alternate escape. That don't work. Control escape. That's what they have it set to. That's real intuitive, gang. Super key by itself does absolutely nothing. So let me go back to what I was looking at here. Thank you. Anyway, that's it. Your feedback is always welcome, and love to hear from you. Leave a comment here. Check us out on Facebook if you are a Facebook user, and if you would, give us a like. We have the Easy Linux page itself where all of this comes together, and then we also have our Easy Linux EzeeTalk community, and that is a forum that we run ourselves. It's not part of some big corporation. It's not a service that's provided by somebody and they can change it or take it away from us. No, we run our own server and our own software, and so you don't have to worry about anybody getting your information you put up there, and got some good moderators in there, so it's kind of a fun thing to do. Check it out. It's an old school forum. It's EzeeTalk. And I'm gone, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye, Sickle.